Bonjour, je m'appelle Julio. Je viens de Maturi. And that's basically as far as I go. But I guess that's also the case for some of you, right? Not French speakers, so that's OK. Yeah, I'm here today to talk about a different topic, maybe, which is how to go from a classic profile of a Cisco engineer or a networking engineer to what we call these days a NetDevOps engineer, which is kind of what we see as an evolution of the role. And I want to tell you the story of how I did it, because I've been, doing network engineer roles for my whole life. And I just want to show you how I did it, how I went into a different profile, so that you can leverage exactly what I did, because that will help you. As Eric was saying, if we can just stand on the shoulders of the work that someone else has done, I want you to be able to leverage it. So everything that I'm going to be describing today, it's real. It's not like we are talking about the future. We are talking about the present. We are talking about what some other engineers are already doing. The main difference is that not everyone is aware of it. So it's not science fiction. It's not bluffy marketing stuff. Everything that I'm going to be describing with you is real, and I'm going to give you everything that you need to replicate it yourself. So I just want to tell you about my work life at Cisco. I joined in year 2000. 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago. And by that time, I was a network engineer. And I was doing the classic stuff that probably you or many of you were doing also at that time. Quality of service and ACLs and trunks and spanning tree. A lot of spanning tree, by the way. Always a lot of spanning tree. And then I was doing mobile because I was in the service provider area. But that's just an anecdote. But 5 years old, I got my CCI in 2002, by the way, which was great because I wanted to be in the cool kids club. So, that's what you do, right? So I got my CCIE. And after that, 5 years later, I got promoted, and I was a network engineer. And I was doing kind of an evolution of the same skills that I was doing previously, right? I was doing MPLS and multi-protocol, BGP, a lot of OSPF. I was still doing a lot of spanning tree, by the way, kind of important. But you can see that it's kind of an evolution, right? It's an evolution of what I was doing 5 years earlier. So fast forward to 6 years after that, I got promoted again, and I was a network engineer. And this time, I was doing an evolution of the same skills, right? I was doing IPv6. Probably you were doing a lot of IPv6 because it was necessary to avoid the Armageddon of IPv4 when we ran out of IPv4 addresses, if you remember. Then managed services and CPE and virtual CPEs. And I started doing some scripting. Why? Because I'm lazy. I'm lazy and I don't want to replicate all the time. Things that I don't like to do are maintenance windows at 4 a.m. Going there and changing SNMP community strings, it's not my thing. I don't want to do 100 routers myself. So I was starting some scripting with TCL, tool command language, and EM, probably familiar to you. Fast forward to 2016, another 5 years, another promotion, network engineer. And by that time, I was doing basically an evolution again, right? Open flow and controllers, with the SDN story. And that's fantastic. And VXLAN, because if you want to make something cool, you just add an X. So VXLAN, great. Segment routing, fantastic. But the difference is that I started doing multi-cloud. Multi-cloud, which is not maybe the classic story for Cisco at that time, but I was really interested. As interested as I got to my boss and say, hey, I would like to get another certification, which is the AWS one, which is maybe not common, for a network engineer, but I was really interested in the cloud, and especially for the hybrid cloud plays, in between on-premises and public cloud. So I got my certification, kind of, the CCIE, but for AWS, the architect professional, and that was great. And in 2019, which is where we are right now, I don't think I'm a network engineer anymore. I think I'm a NetDevOps engineer. And the main reason is that if you take a look at the skill set, it's absolutely different. Right now, I'm working on many, many different things. I'm working not only on hybrid cloud environments, but I'm doing a lot of Python. I'm working with APIs, RESTconf, NetConf. I'm doing a lot of young data models. I'm working with fabrics. I'm working on containers. Cisco engineer working on containers, he doesn't know his stuff. And I'm doing a lot of DevOps, and I'm applying DevOps into the network configuration, which is called NetDevOps. So it's a different profile. But for me, it's an evolution. I was doing a lot of networking engineer, and then I think right now it's a different profile. And I'm here to try to talk to you about how you can go into this path as well. The great thing about this proposal that I'm bringing you is that you will not age a day. In 20 years, I'm still looking exactly the same, so don't worry. So what happened to you? What happened to me when I went into this path? Why did I go into this? Well, 3 things happening to me. The first one is a video. And unfortunately, we cannot have the right audio, but I'm going to do something. Yes. Okay, hope you can hear it. It's magical. I mean, I was not so excited about developers. I could have been a developer when I just got out of school, you know, and I decided not to do it because by that time, developers were not that cool. But man, when you see the CEO of one of the biggest companies in the world sweating as hell, shouting developers in the biggest conference in the world, that's going to mean something, right? That's going to mean that developers are important. And the more that I talk to different CEOs in many different customers, developers are king makers. You guys are king makers. You guys are the ones that differentiate the way that companies communicate with their customers. And that's the most important thing for any CEO, for anyone working for any company. So that was the first thing. The second thing was the market. I already started noticing that money is disappearing from IT departments. Their budgets are shrinking, while line of business owners, their budget is growing. So money is like energy. It's not destroyed. It's just being spent somewhere else. So it's line of business owners who are spending that money. So if that money is going to developers, and developers are working with line of business owners to create differential proposals, that's where I want to go. I want to follow the money. And the third thing was a session that I saw from a colleague, a modern application development session. And probably for developers in the room, this is not something new. But for me, coming from a networking engineer, yeah, that was amazing. It was a window into a sea of new things that I was not aware of. Like, I have never seen this. So he was showing an example microservices-based application that I had never heard of, microservices, and what is this, and how does it work? So he was showing this application, which is to vote for the best superhero in the world, which is really relevant. And in this case, it had some users accessing via different interfaces, so HTTP and WebEx Teams and Lambda, so that you could just use Alexa to interact with functions, serverless. And then everything was going into a middleware, and it was processing the votes with MQTT, and then it was going into a database. And all of these things we're doing with microservices. Wow, I was amazed. I was really, really surprised. This sounded great. And then he started showing how developers actually work in the real world, which is via pipelines, where you have developers here, and they are contributing via Git into a version control server. And there we store all the code, and that code automatically detonates via a webhook. It detonates a complete workflow that creates new images, and those images are published and updates containers in the production environment. Wow, I was like overwhelmed. Like, what's this kind of black sorcery magic, right? I had never heard of. But then they started talking about how is it possible that Amazon or Netflix, any guesses on how many times Netflix updates their website, their application, every day? Numbers. Guesses. Thousands. Any guesses? Thousands hits. 4,000 times. 4,000 times a day. While financial entities, or the usual ones that we work with, the legacy classic ones, they update their software twice a day. Sorry, twice a year. Twice a year versus 4,000 a day. There's got to be some difference because it's not like one of them is smarter than the other, right? It's like they are working in a very different way. So for me, this was amazing. This was, wow, I love this stuff. I mean, how could I not know about this? So what I did was I started studying, as any network engineer, that gets curious. I started studying about this. But man, there are so many different words. They don't speak VLAN. They don't care about my spanning tree. They care about many different words that I was not aware of at all. So I was devastated because you need to start studying and you learn about all these different concepts. And it's very, very difficult, honestly. Or for me, it was very, very difficult. But studying for all of these really caught my attention one specific thing, which is something called Kubernetes. And Kubernetes was amazing because it's kind of the best operations teams in the world, and it works with declarative formats. Basically, you tell the system what you want, and the system will translate it into what needs to happen. And that was, really a revelation for me. Such a revelation that 13 years after Twitter was created, I created my account. It just took me 13 years. And the account that I created was Julio DevOps, because it's only going to be focused on DevOps, because I really wanted to learn about this. And I got to the point that I asked the three wise men, kind of the Santa Claus, to have this physical book. Why? Because I'm 44 years old, and I'm really old. So I wanted to have a physical book, something that I could read when I go to bed. So I got this book in January, if you can see here, January 2018. In February 2018, I decided to spend as much as $300 on building something. So I bought some Raspberry Pis. Great present for this event. I bought some Raspberry Pis, and I just wanted to create my own Kubernetes cluster. Why? Because there is something visceral about having a physical environment that you can play with and unplug the power and remove the hard disk. And just do anything that is evil to the system to see how it reacts. So I created it, and it was great. Well, here you cannot see it very well, but it's a very small setup that basically I'm still working on it. 2 years after that, I'm still working on it and expanding functionality. And it's so small, you cannot see it here, but I just put a banana for scale so that you can really understand how small it is. It's really small. And I'm taking it with me everywhere. Customs people at the airport do not like it, but what do they know, right? So I'm just bringing this, and it's a great exercise. And it's a great exercise to get into all of this stuff because it's funny and it works beautifully. It's got applications in production right now. It really has. It's working very well. So what did I do? I have very bad memory, so unless I type and document things, I will never remember it again. So I started typing, and what I created was a love letter. A love letter to myself for the future, because I will never be able to remember everything that I was doing. So I documented everything, and I wrote this love letter. And this love letter, it's called Handson with DevOps. Why? Because I attend so many DevOps sessions in the last 2 years talking about the cultural change that DevOps is, that for an engineer, it's like, yeah. But tell me the truth. Tell me what's behind that. Tell me the practical approach into DevOps. So I just did this with the hands-on with DevOps, with a special emphasis on hands-on. So no fluffy stuff, just going into the real thing, giving you the code, giving you the tools on how you can implement DevOps yourself and the practices that you need to get familiar with from scratch, from knowing nothing. So from a network engineer, that's absolutely great. And as long as I was documenting it for myself, I just gave it also to the audience, to whoever is interested in learning about this. So if you're a network engineer and you want to learn about DevOps and you are fed up with so many cultural change slides, just go here and you will see the real practical approach into DevOps, which is cs.co/JulioDevOps. That's the link. There you will learn about a lot of things that maybe as a network engineer we are not familiar with. So things from Kubernetes to a service mesh with Istio, Docker, Helm for package manager, different CI/CD tools. So basically everything that you think that I think you should know. Going back to the set of words that I was not familiar with, I just learned about another one that I was familiar with, but that didn't really know what it meant, which is APIs. 25 years ago, when I was going out of school, APIs were there. That's nothing new, right? But something has changed. Basically, for me, what has changed is that APIs have matured. APIs now are much more comprehensive and robust than they were 25 years ago. APIs have also changed because it's much easier to consume them today. Right now, you have libraries created by the community that avoids you to write 50,000 lines of code to create an HTTPS request. So APIs help with this challenge, which is the interaction in between humans and systems. As of today, we just have this interface. and this input interface, right? We just use this to input data into a system, and we just use this to receive them. So even the fastest typer in the world can only type 20 times slower than our brain thinks. So we are lucky because we are just waiting for this guy to solve it. He's got the wizard hat, if you're familiar with. That is the interaction in between our brain directly with systems, kind of Googling from your brain. So this is kind of the solution, right? It's going to be great because I'm just going to think, change SNMP community strings, and it's going to happen. It's going to go directly there. But I think that the production system is not ready yet. So in the meanwhile, we have to work with something else. I just wanted to include this quote about the strategic roadmap for networking from Gartner from last year, saying that by 2020, so next year, only 40% of network operations teams will be using CLI as their primary interface. What are they using if they are not using CLI? Any guesses? What are operations teams using? Sorry? Dashboards. Good one. Any other guesses? Who was that? That my man. That's it. There you go. Ah, that's good. APIs. Exactly, they are using APIs. So the value proposition of APIs is we just send from our system, from our computer to the network device, we just send information about what we want it to accomplish, and it will just return whatever is required. So for repetitive tasks, it's very, very useful. So the benefits of programmability fall around 3 pillars: innovation, integration, and automation. Those are the 3 main things that APIs can help with: creating new stuff, automating tedious tasks, and integrating different elements because of the APIs that provide this kind of contract in between them. We just want to make sure that the same way that we do not think about when we throw out the garbage can where it goes or how we get clean water at our home, we just want to make sure that we can provide exactly the same to our network operators. So what do we want? Well, we want to apply those DevOps principles into the network. And for that, I started working on something very similar to what I've shown. Instead of having developers, I thought, OK, what if we have operators of our network, and we have them contributing, instead of code, configuration in Git branches. We have the configurations in a version control server, and again, it automatically detonates via webhooks one process in the integration server that will create a testing environment, like with unit testing for software, but in this case, a virtual environment for networking, where we will change the configuration as proposed, verify that everything works fine, and once that we make sure that everything works fine, we will just go into the production network and do exactly the same. Deploy the changes, make sure that everything works fine, and if the change was successful, we'll let it be. If the change was unsuccessful, we will automatically roll back. Everything automated, no manual interaction. This is the way that we envision the future of network operations. Doing exactly the same thing that software developers do, but instead of using code, we use network configurations. So I think this is awesome. This is a great starting point. But so in my case, what did I do? Well, basically, as I said, I have very bad memory. So again, I did exactly the same. I started typing and wrote what? What did I read? Another love letter. Another love letter to myself. But in this case, instead of being hands-on with DevOps, what's called hands-on with NetDevOps. So how do you implement exactly this? How do you implement these CI/CD workflows, but for the network? So in this case, it's documented in cs.co/Julio NetDevOps, different from the other because of the net thing. And if you go there, you will learn about so much stuff, again, similar to what you saw for the software development part, but in this case, for network configuration. And when I mean everything, I mean everything. Like from scratch, you get started. You have all the demonstrations for you. You have all the code. You have everything. You can implement everything. You don't have to invest a single dollar on anything, just to make sure that you get familiar with how it works. And shameless plug for my own session, tomorrow at 9 a.m., as Eric was saying, I will be talking exactly about this and showing you the real stuff behind that. So at the end of the day, it's all about discovering a new world of opportunities with stakeholders. It requires you to be aware of what's out there, to have the will to adapt, to align with your own operations. And inside Cisco, we have DevNet, which is our software development program. that is focused on providing you with everything for free that you need to get started here. So DevNet has everything that you need so that you can learn the sandboxes, the learning labs, etc., etc. Do we need to become programmers? Well, we already are programmers. Network engineers have always been programmers. We have been programming our network devices for our whole life. We just need to start learning on how to do it in a different way. So if you want to morph into this new profile of network engineer, I know this is how it looks. I know this is the main stopper, but I'm here to help. So if you want to learn about all of this stuff, just go to these links, Julio DevOps, Julio NetDevOps, just the blog where I'm blogging all the time about the banana size cluster. So I just want everyone to feel proud about what we have done as network engineers, but not to be satisfied. The future will need you to invest more time on different stuff, and now is the time to start investing. That's it from my side. Any questions from anyone? I'm going to be around for today and tomorrow. Any questions, just grab me, whatever. Other than that, thank you very much.
Great, thank you.